Thank you, Jean-Claude. Indeed, I will come back to the comprehensive benefit cost analysis of the project more generally. We focus to its carbon benefits. I agree with Jean-Claude that today the importance of the environmental issues would be higher today than they were at the moment of the launch of the project more than 10 years ago. However, I will show that we had tried to incorporate environmental benefits. Indeed, for example, what is new is all what is associated with land use and the land use impact of the project. But we will see that despite these questions, these issues were not at the top level 10 years ago. Indeed, the tools that have been developed to assess the social value added by the project are useful to answer to this question, and so we have progress on that. I think that a global vision is necessary because we are dealing with very complex projects, and I think that this session is to deal with effective carbon action. And if effective carbon action is to make green project, it is important to underline that generally the goal of the green projects are not only, we have spoken of co-benefits this morning, but indeed, what I am going to show you is that in the case of the Grand Paris Express, the ranking of co-benefits is quite reverse. Indeed, carbon impacts are co-benefits or a transformational project, urban transformational project. And so it's important to manage that project and to integrate. And I think that if we have a fragmented view with people who look to carbon and others to the urban effects, there is a problem. We must build projects that are able to create a global value added for the society, and it's a difficulty. Just a few words. To illustrate, the map that I have chosen is indeed a map that shows that the lines have been organized to link and to connecting different economic hubs in the region, and so it illustrates that the first objective when the project was launched, and the main question at this moment was the competitiveness of the region and of the metropole, and the question was the first question which was addressed to us was whether such a project could be could provide a positive contribution to improve the competitiveness of in the competition between big cities. So just a few other elements about the different goals of the project to illustrate. Here you have five items, but the first one is competition between cities. Then the second one at this time was housing shortages, then pollution, congestion, and territorial imbalances. So the question that we had to assess to prove the opportunity to make the project was to show and to assess the impact of the project. And what I'm going to explain is what has been done on this side with the head of the Scientific Council of the Société du Grand Paris. Just a few insights about the associated issues. For example, Paris is a quite monocentric city, but it was quoted that there was sprawl tendencies, and these tendencies were to be reversed. So a question is whether the project can contribute to reverse sprawl tendencies. Another one, which is important, is social imbalances between East and West. And also, I must add, between the city of Paris, if we consider accessibility, the city of Paris is well deserved by very interconnected lines of metro. If you go to the first crown, it's completely different. You have only radial lines, and also the problem with these radial lines is that they stimulate also residential sprawl. So, as explained by Jean-Claude, the idea behind the design of the project is to create rings to connect, to increase interconnection, but no radial lines which would have stimulated urban sprawl. But the question was, does it work? So this was what we had to assess. And finally, it's with the question of housing shortages. So the lines deserve a lot of places where we thought that there are high potentials to create new cities and potential of land, which it could be mobilized to counterbalance the rigidities of the land market in Paris. So I think it's... and finally, just a word about the Société du Grand Paris. So Société du Grand Paris is in charge of constructing the infrastructure, and it has a global long-term financing model secured by dedicated fiscal resources. And what you must know is that then lines will be operated by operators which are to be selected by Île-de-France Mobility through a competitive bidding process which has begun for the first lines. So a few words about the general cost-benefit analysis of the project. So one important thing is that in France, we have the equivalent of the UK Green Book, which defines compulsory social values to be used to make cost-benefit analysis. You have here, and morning, the question of the rate of social discount rate has been mentioned by Christian with the work of Emile and so on. So we have references for discount rate, carbon value, and so on. Also, for example, for value of statistical life, with the declination of this value for the impact and the damages associated to emissions of car emissions in different here in the dense urban areas of the city. So we have references, and the problem for us was not to create new references for the valuation of the impacts, but to the main problem for us was to assess the impacts and to have credible, quite robust estimates of the impacts. So the impacts, the first one, of course, it's a transportation project, and the question is the ability of the project to provide a supply for the users, and in particular to make modal shifts from cars to mass transit, and of course with expected benefits on the environmental side from less CO2 emissions, but also from local pollutions which have health adverse effects. So for that, the natural tool was to use standard traffic models, 4 steps models, as you know probably, despite there has been a lot of discussion about whether they were relevant to assess or to integrate the specificities of the project. Indeed, that it is an automatic metro project and not a standard one or a standard railways lines. So what we have obtained from the use of such a tool is a result estimates of modal shifts, and of course the modal shift is near the stations. Of course, is higher near the stations of the new station, 68 new station of the project. So that's a first element. However, as already said by Jean-Claude, our idea was that Grand Paris Express should be a transformational urban project, and so the second thing was to try to get estimates of the impact of the project, of land use, and of the functioning of the city. So for that, we have used so-called land use transport integrated models, whose theory comes from the seminal works by, I think, in the 70s or in the 60s even. And what is important, these are models which combine transportation models as described before and a land use model, and with the connection between the two by the main two types of key variables, which are accessibility and land prices, and the interaction between accessibility, land prices, and density for the land use residential model. So indeed, in France, we had not used such model, or implemented such model at the time where the project was launched. And since the question of the impact of the project of land use and the functioning of the metropolitan areas, it seemed very important to Jean-Claude to try to appropriate such model, and we have asked two different modeling teams to help us to develop this model for Île-de-France. And for example, you have here an illustration of the result of urban sim. I know that that Nathalie was the gist this afternoon. So you see on the left you have a picture of what should be the densities and the new urban developments in the city without the project. And then you see on the right that the urbanization, the process urbanization is more concentrated and associated with higher densities in the center. So it was the second. However, this was not sufficient because there was a question about economic development. What is the consequence of this new or transform urban shape on the social productivity, the economic competitiveness of the city? And so the next step was to mix the results of land use transport integration models with estimates of urban externalities. And it was a very big question because we needed estimates of different urban externalities. And now I think there has been a lot of attempts and different approaches to, for example, to approach, since, for example, an important line is line 18, which connect Paris-Saclay University with Orly and Paris and so on. So we could think that cluster scientific cluster externalities were at stake, and then we could imagine, I have said, our housing markets are very rigid, but also the labor market. And so there was a question, have we to transfer the result of Venables for Crossrail for the Grand Paris and so on? So we have tried the supervision of Jean-Claude to find different approaches. I think that finally, the main approach that has more conclusive at this until now is to use estimates of urban economies, estimates of the impact of density of urban productivity and urban gains on the labor market. And so, but it's difficult because if you look at the relationship between density and wages, it's clear there is a strong relationship, but of course it's not apparent relationship. And so we have also, you have here the tables of the results of the main study by Combe, Lafourcade, and Gobillon, which have tried to carefully eliminate all potential endogeneity and selection bias to obtain more robust estimates of what we could consider as urban density effect on productivity. So at the end, with all that, since we have the impacts, it was possible to monetarize all the impacts and to find the advantages. If you look on the left, you see that environmental impacts are quite important. However, it's clear that carbon impacts are not the main impacts of the project. The main impact of the project are user benefits, of course, and then more urban externalities, for example, than environmental goods. For a part, so this is not contradictory with the fact that environmental issues are very important. They were important at the launch of the project, and you have here all the objectives of the project with the different elements of the environmental effect of such a project. But of course, for example, the impact on circular economy and waste materials at the level of the cost-benefit analysis, it is integrated in the cost of the project because we have strict objectives, and Marion could explain that more precisely. So we have strong objectives. So what is important is residual emissions, and so I will focus on CO2 emissions. So all that was present at the beginning of the project, but as already said, today the environmental injury has changed the level of these issues. So if I come now to CO2 emission, which is the topic of today, of course, we have such reduced form curves, Kenworthy and all the Kenworthy, between urban density and emission or energy and so on. So, of course, as other continental, European continental cities, our emissions are quite low, but they must be lower. And but of course, this was not sufficient to assess. First, this is not a causal relationship, and second, the question is what is the contribution of the Grand Paris Express to the emissions of the French city? So we needed more instruments. So we have developed also tools to estimate these impacts. These tools the main tool was a tool named CarbOptimum, which is a life cycle analysis of the impact of the project. Of course, but it was controversial, but there is no controversy. When you create tunnels, you emit CO2. There is no doubt about that. So it's clear that at the beginning, you have a complementary carbon debt, because to build the project, you must emit some CO2. And of course, despite the energy will be electrical one and mainly decarbonated one. Indeed, if you have a life cycle approach, you have also CO2 emissions to count. So, what has been done on this side is that, of course, as we have the design of the project, very precise, how many tons of concrete, how many tons of steel in the station, in the tunnel, and so on. The tool provides a careful analysis of the impact of the project and of the emissions, gross emission of the project during the building phase. Just a comment, this has been done at the beginning of the project. Indeed, it is regularly updated, and in particular because we try to reduce these expected emissions by providing incentives for our contractors who are building the project to reduce, so they are incentivized to reduce their emission, and they have penalties or bonus if they do that. And then you have on the bottom the positive effect of the project, which result in green from the modal shift induced by the project, and on blue of the impact of the territorial impact of the project. And indeed, because you have mobility, so the mobility impacts of the project, mobility, modal shift, but also modification of the type of trips. If you have a city which is more dense, more densified, and then you have also impacts about heat, heat and housing and so on, because we expect of the project a strong refurbishing of buildings in the area, and also the project, the densification provides benefit because small single houses are very emissive of CO2. So so this is all that. So what is important at this stage, and it was one of my main message, is that all the modeling that has been used to assess the impact of the project are also necessary to estimate the environmental effect of the project. And today, I have already said that land use and artificialization and so on is a very important topic. Of course, the fact that we have estimates impact by land use transport integration model, we can have estimates of the land use impact. It's very important to assess the impacts on biodiversity, for example. The question, we have not good values to monetize these impacts, but we have, in this case, it's reverse. We have more tools to assess the impacts with that. So this is the result, and the fact that the renovation on neighborhoods around station provides, in these estimates, a very strong contribution to CO2 reduction. Just to mention that, of course, there are a lot of debates about the estimation of such estimate. For example, when you are with effective action, all decision of all solutions, CO2 decarbonation solutions, are not complementary sometimes. There are alternative or substitute, and there is, for example, the question whether we should, if all the fleet of vehicle are electrical, of course, the benefits on CO2 emission will not be the same. So we must make hypotheses about the penetration of electrical vehicles and so on. But beyond that, there are a lot of questions, because when you make a benefit cost analysis, it's a differential analysis. And the question is what you put in the what if not scenarios. And it's not so easy because you must make hypotheses. Of course, we must put all the existing policies, but we know that existing policies are not sufficient to achieve Paris Agreement objectives, and so we must make is about whether political objectives are credible, are the commitments credible, and what should be the realistic, effective policies in these scenarios. The consequence of that is that in certain under certain different hypotheses, the impact of the project on CO2 changes indeed if all vehicles are electrical ones, because there is a regulation. Of course, there is no benefit on CO2 emission, but it may provide benefits on abatement costs of the CO2 policy, because public transport offers a solution, for example, for people who have not enough money to buy an electrical car. They can, by this means, continue to have access to mobility and so on. If we cannot consider electrical cars are associated with important fixed costs, and they are not free. So we have to provide a complete analysis which consider CO2 emissions and damages, or also sometimes the global abatement cost of the national strategy for decarbonizing the economy. So I think I must accelerate. No, I don't know. Just a few words. Why, of course, I have shown what has been done at the beginning of the project. I must add that we must update the results, not only to have better estimates, but because, for example, new behavior, changes of behavior post-COVID, for example, the role of work to home and so on, may change the pattern of the behavior of users at the moment where the project will be completed, will be working. And moreover, as already said, the benefits of the project, the important part of the benefits of the project for the environment and also for the city more generally, is associated with the densification. And so sometimes perhaps we need to ensure the success of the project. We must be sure that, for example, the land policies are completely coherent with what is necessary. And so to ensure the better profit of the project, we must consider all things, a lot of things that has not been considered at the beginning of the project, but which that remain quite important for the success of the project. So one is post-COVID, another one is how to have a good complementarity between road policies and restriction to circulate in Paris and public transport. And what you see is that, and the problem, there is a political commitment to create big restrictions for the access to the CBD of the city for cars, to limit local pollutions. But indeed, as you see on the map here, this figure, is that a lot of people which are poor, which are working poor, have, of course, all CO2 classical fossil fuel cars. And we cannot say them, you cannot go to work. So we have today a big trade-off between the will to reduce air pollution and the fact that it's not possible to be supported by these working poor households. And so what you see, you have on this map also the map of the Grand Paris Express network, and you see that the Grand Paris Express will be an alternative solution for their people who will have, when the GPE will be working, when it will be finished, they will have an alternative solution. But today, for example, in the northeast of the first crown, they have not. Indeed, they have not a good alternative. A lot of poor people have not the correct alternative. Another field is the question of the impact of the project, not on the first crown, but on the second crown. And so there are benefits of the project because our circles provide a lot of interconnection with radial lines. And so people who are near these radial lines will get benefits of the project. But most people in the second crown are between the radial lines. And for them, indeed, the project has not been done to improve their accessibility to the city. On the contrary, the idea was the project has been conceived to have a higher density in the first crown and not to make a uniform reduction of the travel costs, because we know that a uniform reduction of travel costs would create sprawl. So we have a trade-off between accessibility of the second crown and urban sprawl, because of course we must try to make the project beneficial for the most people. But of course, this needs probably other instruments to contain the potential sprawl effect of creating new bus lines for second crown. So this question is typically a question which is on the table now: how to make benefit by new buses the second crown of the project, without generating excessive urban sprawl. And then this is some topics. Previously, it was some topics to be studied. Of course, we have also to improve the modeling. An important thing, I went very quickly about the first step of transport modeling. Indeed, we remain not completely satisfied of the results of traditional models, because we consider that they are not completely relevant to describe the quality of service of automatic metro, and they are not completely satisfactory for the estimates of impact on decongestion induced by the project. So we need to progress, but some people have provided possible approaches by working by individual dynamic models, including departure time and so on. Also, as already said, there is a question of environmental impacts on land use. I have also already said that land use transport interaction models provide a tool to estimate the impacts, but there is a question of how to value biodiversity impacts associated. Another question, I will go quickly, but a question that has been asked to Société du Grand Paris by the current expert. As I have explained, we have tried to have estimates for everything. And the question is whether these estimates are not, is there no double accounting? For example, you observe density effect on the land market, a density effect on the labor markets, but perhaps one is capitalizing the others and so on. So we have huge questions of our counter experts. What we are sure is that when we speak of external urban externality, there is no double accounting. For example, if you are a researcher who decides to go to Saclay because it's better, the accessibility is better, and he will be able to work with colleagues, very interesting, etc. It's clear that you decide to do that because for your own interest. You do not incorporate the fact that if you are a good researcher and that you go to Saclay, you will provide also benefits to your colleagues who will also could be able to discuss with you. And so there are external, when we speak of urban externality, we are indeed speaking of economic externality in the sense, so there is no double accounting. However, the question is on the table, and we are thinking about the possibility to try to use new spatial quantitative equilibrium with their limits, but to provide a global coherent framework and to be able to say that our framework is really coherent with no double accounting. So, and of course, a new question is whether we are able to transfer the method and the result that we have obtained for Grand Paris Express to new projects in regional metropoles. So finally, a few messages. As you have seen, I think, of course, environmental issues are absolutely essential, but they must be considered in the context of multiplicity of impacts, and not only, but also social and economic impacts, and sometimes with trade-offs, sometimes with co-benefits. But when you are with real big green investment, you must have this coherence. Then I think that is not completely evident, but I have tried to stress that, is the fact that indeed environmental very often, I think, environmental impacts depend of the success of the project on the economic ground. If the project does not function, there will be no modal shift, and there will be no CO2 reduction of emissions. So, if we want to make active action, real action toward the climate, it's very important to have investment projects that are working, that are really working, and not only by looking to potential CO2 reduction of emission, but whether there will be people who will take the new infrastructure and so on. Of course, but to congratulate the idea of Jean-Claude, we are convinced that Société Européenne, of course, it's a very big project, and it's quite obvious to say that research was needed to highlight all these studies and so on, but we are really convinced that we cannot really address these new problems without a strong relationship with academic research to find a solution to have better modeling, better estimates of urban externalities and so on. And so we, of course, we want to continue to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jean-Claude and Dominique, for this introduction of what the Société du Grand Paris and the Grand Paris Express can bring. And now it opens the floor for questions.
Thank you. Of course, it's a very interesting project that made...
You were at the outset of the...
Economics advance, of course. I've been part of some kind of scientific committee in the past. Now I want a small question about this relation between density and emissions. And I agree, electric vehicles will change that. But there's another let's say, relationship that can be important is that the problem of the heat island. The heat island, the fact that you have a much more dense city makes that you will have a higher temperature in that city.
Yes.
And that is coming. If you believe in climate change, okay, there will be a climate change.
Yes.
And if we, in Paris, I imagine in the summer, you have 3 degrees extra, and you add a couple of maybe 3 degrees
Yes.
on top of that, then it's becoming important to make sure that you have enough green areas, that you do not have a city that is too dense. To what extent is that already in your, let's say, baseline? I would put it in a baseline.
Mm-hmm. Yes. To answer to that, one thing that you have not, I think, mentioned is that a question about these estimates is also the possibility of rebound effects. And so, but the answer is quite different for that. It's clear that when people are better insulated flats and so on, indeed, when flats are very bad, indeed, people admit to they don't pay a lot of energy. Indeed, they accept to have 16 degrees and not 18. But when they have insulated flats, generally they switch from 16 to 20, and so but there are associated health effects with that, and so we must, and also comfort benefits. So it's a caveat about the estimates about it. And the second one, which is associated with I don't think that the item adaptation was present. Indeed, it's an important topic for us because, of course, the question of îlot de chaleur and the question of vegetalization. So when I speak, I have said that it's very difficult to evaluation for biodiversity. Indeed, I don't. Marion will not agree probably. She's our environmental specialist. But of course, if you look at the design of the station, generally the places around the station are mineral ones. Clearly, this is wrong. We must vegetalize. And so the question, are we able to create a good balance in the new neighborhoods near the stations that we have created between different activities, between public equipment and between nature, and how much nature in the town we are going to put. It's very, very important. And it's another topic for us over we must work about that. So, okay, completely agree.
Thank you very much for these presentations. One remark and one question. The remark is that it would be very useful that this experience also be actually published and even in academic journals. You talked about you said that this is a transformative project that, by the way, yielded carbon benefits, but as along with many others. And actually, it's surprisingly few such examples documented in the academic literature that can be that can then be exploited in things like the AICC and the type of reports. So that's one aside. But the question is then how this very detailed and so suppose very time and resource consuming cost benefit analysis, how was it used? Was it mostly an ex post analysis to basically say, okay, are we on the right side of things in terms of our objectives? Or did it also yielded insights that could modify some elements of a project?
So on the first side, I must mention that under the supervision of Jean-Claude, there has been books which provide executive summaries of all the studies that have been used by the Société du Grand Paris. And the the first one, the red one, was about economic and urban impacts. And we have had another one, which is a green book, which is about environmental issues. This illustrates the fact that environmental issues, the attention paid to environmental issues has increased with the development of the project. On your second question, on the other side, of course, we must try to do that, and we have not time in this, but we should take more time to diffuse the results. So thank you very much to provide us the opportunity to diffuse all these works. Generally, a lot of the scientific results have been published. For example, Combe, Gobillon, Lafourcade are important results about density effects. If you look to Duranton and the Puga survey, for example, and it's clear. So we have not problem with that because it has been published. So the second question is, what's the use of that? First, it's clear that it's absolutely essential to justify the project. I think, but I think that Jean-Claude will want to add something. But I think, however, I think that we are spending 30 billion euros. Of course, we are convinced, and it's a beautiful project. But we wanted also to be sure that it was not a foolish idea, and it was very important for us to check, for example, the condition for the success of the project. And for example, an important result of the scientific council was the accentuation put on the fact that it's absolutely necessary that the project is not only an infrastructure project, but also land development project, and to remove or to alleviate land the rigidities of land market. So it was to be counter-expertise, but it was also to make our opinion that it was that we think that the project is good, or that is justified to take. It's of course all green projects are risky, and so we wanted to check that the risk was reasonable. So then you are right. It's not so easy because the process of the building of the project is very complex and quite fragmented. But of course, cost-benefit analysis is a tool to assess the go/no-go decision. But we would want that it would be also a tool to highlight a decision of eco-design, to balance the cost of eco-design with the environmental benefits. And so, of course, we try to, and our idea is that this project is a beautiful case to prove that cost-benefit analysis is also a tool to design better projects.
Oui, excusez-moi, je mets mon globish de côté et je réponds en français. Il y a une chose qu'on perçoit mal quand on est dans un monde académique, c'est le poids de toutes les procédures administratives par lesquelles on est obligé de passer, et le fait que maintenant, les associations, en particulier protectrices de l'environnement, mais d'autres aussi, qui sont opposées au projet, utilisent tous les arguments pour essayer de faire échouer le projet et de le faire remettre en question. Et dans ces arguments, il y a l'argument de l'utilité publique, et de l'utilité publique basée sur l'analyse coût-bénéfice. Donc, c'est la raison pour laquelle il est indispensable sur un projet comme celui-ci, en permanence, d'être à la pointe de la connaissance pour montrer que l'analyse coût-bénéfice donne un résultat positif d'une manière solide et difficile à contester. On a vécu, j'ai oublié le nombre de contestations devant les tribunaux du projet, mais il est certain que si en permanence on n'avait pas actualisé les études, les résultats des études à la lumière de ce que l'on fait de mieux au moment où il peut y avoir cette contestation, soit en actualisant les données et en actualisant aussi les connaissances sur le sujet, nous aurions le projet probablement aurait été contesté devant des tribunaux qui auraient accepté cette contestation. On n'est pas en Angleterre, si vous voulez. En Angleterre, le projet Crossrail, qui est un grand RERA, 120 km, a été voté par le Parlement et après, en 2006, si ma mémoire est bonne, il n'a plus été contesté. C'est-à-dire que tous, d'abord, il n'y avait pas trop d'opposants à ce projet, et tous ceux qui contestaient le projet ont considéré qu'une fois qu'il avait été décidé par le Parlement, c'était fini, il devait être fait. La France, c'est différent. Vous avez un exemple extraordinaire de cette contestation permanente qui finit quelquefois par réussir, qui est Notre-Dame-des-Landes, où quand même vous avez un projet approuvé par décret en Conseil d'État après une utilité publique qui a résisté à une contestation du Conseil d'État. On s'est senti obligé de consolider cela par un référendum qui a donné un résultat positif à 55%, et à la fin, ça n'a pas empêché des minoritaires, activistes, de continuer de contester physiquement sur le terrain, et puis un gouvernement qui n'a pas mesuré toutes les conséquences institutionnelles que cela pouvait avoir, revenir sur ce projet. Donc, on a à faire face en permanence à ce genre de contestation dans un pays très gaulois comme la France, et donc il faut se prémunir contre ces risques.
To illustrate, for example, in the case, to illustrate what could provide cost-benefit analysis and what it is very difficult indeed to do in the context of institutional legal procedures and so on. In the case of line 18, it's a south and it's a line which is in a less dense area. So the question whether to choose between underground, surface, and bridges, it was a real question. But indeed, this question has been completely in interaction with public debates, completely debates. So at the end, of course, probably if we were greenfield now and with all the information and so, probably we should do differently. But indeed, it was totally impossible to. We have done our best under all the constraints and the constraints of controversies, but also non-regulated controversies, and so it's very difficult to imagine the result and the issue of this controversy. So they are a bit what they are for in this case, but you are right.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that we have to close this session to go to the next one.